One of the things I wanted to ask you before we get into Peter Thiel and NVIDIA, because I really want to ask you about that.
Okay.
But it strikes me, because I've been reading you for, I don't know, maybe a year. And
Oh,
are you
really?
okay?
Yeah, I'm actually plugging my my
Oh,
phone
okay.
in
Okay. I'll
because I just noticed that I and I'm putting my do not disturb on so
Yes,
that
do that. Even
random
when I do
people.
that, my son has an uncanny ability to call me when I'm live. He's
Well,
done it
see,
so
yeah.
many times. I don't know. He's probably going to do it now.
Well,
Sometimes he does it just to annoy me.
I've got it and even when I have it do not disturb, I have like some emergency numbers that can get
Yeah,
through
right.
like my wife or
Yeah,
whatever and my
yeah,
kids and
yeah.
fortunately, two of the three are in the same house, so they know where I am right
Okay. Right. Well, I bet my son, now that I've said that, he's going to
now.
call.
Here he
But
comes.
here he comes, but I will just very subtly put out a hand and turn him off. So what I wanted to know before we get into Peter Thiel and NVIDIA, it strikes me, because I think I've been reading you for about a year, and it really strikes me in the last while. Would it be right to say you've become more of an activist? And have you always been an activist?
I,
Or is that something that's growing?
I think I've probably always been that way.
Okay.
As far as writing goes, I think the first time that I said something along the lines of Trump being a fascist or something like that was and it took me a minute to decide if I was going to, say the F word.
Yeah, right.
But it was actually I think it was right before the 2020 election. So pretty early on. But if you go back and look all the way back, because all my stuff is there's no there shouldn't be any paywalls. There might be, but if anybody ever runs into one, just let me know because they're not supposed to be. But
Yeah.
um like the first few things that I wrote were almost more analytical,
Yeah.
talking about COVID bailouts are a bad idea or
Or
something
like
like that.
educational. I found them
Yeah.
really educational. Like I was learning stuff,
Hmm.
but it's got a
Well,
lot more, you know,
well,
like,
I'm just kind of going with the times require
yeah,
a
right.
little bit of yeah.
Yeah. And so in that case, are you getting braver every day in terms of the words you use and the things you say and the ideas that you share, knowing that these are ideas and nobody has the crystal ball, but are you finding that's growing the more you do it?
And you mean, am I getting more bold about it?
Yeah, bolder.
I maybe I feel like I'm pretty. I, I just I just come from a world where you just say what's on your mind. I mean,
Right.
so I'll be. I mean, it has taken a minute, maybe. Because it's different when you write it down.
Yeah.
It's like it's like years ago, my mother wrote me a really just ugly, she wrote a letter. She never sent an email in her life, right? And she wrote me
Yeah.
this and I think we laugh about it now because she wrote all this stuff down and it's, you can't really delete it. So,
Right.
it got to be kind of like a family joke, like this just crazy letter she
But
wrote me.
it's much more set in stone if it's written, and yet
Yeah.
somehow I find like I'm much bolder writing stuff. There's something about saying it now live, like what we think, like using that word fascist, he's a fascist,
Hmm.
that feels really kind of like, I don't know, it feels more challenging. Will I get it? All that stuff, will I get in trouble? Whereas I'm quite happy to write that,
Hmm.
right?
I don't know if I differentiate.
Okay.
I'll write it or I'll say it, and for me, I feel like I'm probably more prone to say things like that than well, it's easy to just kind of go off, for me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I always joke that it's not healthy to hold it in.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Not at all. And on that score, I've just watched, well, I watched it on YouTube actually, because I think are you going to be spreading into YouTube like different stuff, or are you just cross pollinating onto YouTube?
Um, I think in the beginning anyway, it's just going to allow me to simulcast. And the reason that I'm doing it is well, a couple of reasons. One, after my experience with Twitter, I mean, I was an early adopter of Twitter.
Okay.
Uh, well, earlier than most. So I and it goes back to when I was on a trading desk. You would have like, I mean, people from CNBC followed me, I followed them, and all that kind of stuff, right? And but what they would do, and journalists still probably, well, I know they do it, but maybe not quite as much. But when Twitter was kind of a new thing, they would post what they were gonna say on television, sometimes 15 minutes before they'd actually get on television to report whatever it was. So it
Wow.
wasn't like inside information, but it was, early information. And so as a trader, I would, I had a screen and it was just nothing but Twitter, like,
Wow.
like a list of people that I followed. And so it might not be anything earth shattering, but it might be, such and such companies getting ready to do this or that, and it would be, it made me appear to be, oh no,
Oh, I
did I
know. Oh
lose you?
no, where have you gone?
There you
Oh,
are. I don't know what happened. The man is trying to silence me.
I know we will not have it. Jesus. Okay,
Okay, we're not going to
that's
talk about
amazing
Twitter
because
anymore.
we are going to talk about Twitter because 15 minutes is a lifetime in terms of making decisions on the trading floor. Presumably, not that I know fuck
Oh
all
yeah.
about it, but
Oh
like, right,
yeah. Yeah.
that's a lifetime. So
I
that's an
mean, and
amazing thing.
yeah, if it, I mean, and it would give me the ability to, okay, I see this thing. And I and at the point when I sort of left trading, you didn't really pick up the phone and call anybody. It was all, it started off being, do you remember AOL Messenger? All the traders,
Right, yeah, yeah. Okay.
nobody picked up the phone. You just had like almost like a group chat thing, of all the different trading desks, and you would just
Because it was
go.
faster?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just
Okay.
like texting now, but we all used Blackberries back then, and so you didn't really
Right.
have the texting thing, was it just wasn't a thing. But AOL Messenger, yeah, and it
Right.
used to drive the compliance department crazy because they didn't have a way to monitor it, and so then Bloomberg started. They had like a messaging component, and that made it where we weren't supposed to be using AOL Messenger, but everybody did. So,
Right.
you see something on Twitter and then you just like DM everybody, and you seem like you're really like on top of stuff. So,
Right. And presumably the idea that anyone trading, because it strikes me as an outsider that the trading floor is full of people who are constantly used to breaking. They're rule breakers all the time, right? Because it's a kind of, is that right? It like attracts a kind of
pretty
wild kind
much,
of party,
yeah.
right? So the
Yeah, I
idea
could
that
tell you some
anyone, yeah,
stories, boy. Lord.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Not me.
You
I made it through what, 25 years of like trading floor, trading desk, and never got in any trouble. I mean,
what sort of trouble
now
might you have
what I
been in?
mean is like regulatory trouble, like the client saying,
Okay,
"Hey, I didn't really buy that." I mean, I knew guys that did stuff, like, I don't know, they needed to make some money and they would just like assign a trade to somebody, or just stupid stuff. But
and get away with it.
for a minute, yeah, but eventually, it's a crazy world. Yeah.
This is one of the things I was wondering, can it ever not be dirty?
I
Money
mean,
and politics. I mean, is
no,
it possible
you know
with the
what though?
system?
I mean, I guess the way I look at it, it's just pretty much like anything. I mean, think of a profession and there's going to be somebody that's going to abuse it. It could be, selling hot dogs or there's going to be a guy that's going to sell really like hot dogs and you don't want to know what's in them maybe. Or I mean, there's always somebody trying to cut corners, right? And no matter what it is, I think it's just human nature. And I know in my experience, regulators would come up with different fixes for, oh, like right now, let's compare it to, just what we're experiencing, where we're finding out. all these things where we thought we had these laws were really just kind of suggestions.
Yeah, yeah.
And so at some point, if we make it through to the other side of this, then people are going to say, boy, we got to fix that. That thing where you don't have to really answer a subpoena if you don't want to, or,
Really?
these different things that Trump has just exploited that the founding fathers never thought we'd have a guy that would do 90% of the stuff he's doing. And we just, what do you call it? Failure of imagination that we'd have a monster that would just say, fuck the rules. I'm just going to do this.
Right.
So, so it's like, I mean, in the world I came from, regulators would come up with a guideline or a regulation. And the first thing traders that we would do is say, okay, let's understand it and figure out where the hole is.
Oh, we can get around it.
Yeah. And without, I
Yeah,
mean, so, you would just get around, you wouldn't be breaking the rules. You just found where the rule stopped and got
yeah.
just on that, just on that right there on that line. And
Right.
so I think it's
Because
human
it
nature.
okay, because it's fun and because you can find a way. I often work with a friend
Well,
of
it's
mine in
profitable.
it's profitable.
So,
Yeah.
well, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So do you remember, if you ever, I don't know if you ever saw The Big Short?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant.
So, the books are much better, by the way.
Okay.
So Michael
But I
Lewis
love
wrote,
Christian Bale, so, pretty good.
yeah, I do too, but I like him better as Batman. So,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
so when the markets started to first go digital,
Yeah.
right? That made it, it created where speed was that was the differentiator. So
Mhm.
you and I could be doing the same exact thing, but if I could do it faster than you, I wasn't breaking the rules, right? I just had a better view.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, if you're standing outside of a building, right? And I'm on the roof of the building. You're looking down the street. I'm looking down the street. Who can see further? You see what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's kind of the way it seemed to work and the way people thought about it. And so what you end up having is, like the people who could afford it were, laying this high speed cable to make their trades faster. They weren't cheating really under the rules, right? So they had to come up with
Right.
new rules to equalize all this shit. So, but for a period of time, if you had better infrastructure than the next guy, then you were going to get better trade execution, right? So I had a trading desk that I equipped with what was called, I don't even know if they still call it this, but it was for high speed trading, like tons of little bitty trades very fast. And you had to have, I mean, the system that I had, and I had a little trading desk.
By
I think,
little, do you mean
I
how
mean,
what do
small in terms of number of people. I had
okay.
4 or 5 guys, but again, when I went to Wall Street, I remember the first place I worked, we got a 1 million share Walmart order, and it took like 5 or 6 people to do it. Different guy. You take 20,000 shares, you're on the phone and you're scrambling and you're calling the floor and doing all this stuff. I used to handle Walmart's share repurchase, stock buyback. And I mean, I wasn't the only one, but when it was my turn,
Yeah.
I would trade, I mean, by myself, I would trade 3 million shares of Walmart and I'd be doing 5 or 6 other things. You see what so that was just from 2000 to, I left New York in 2012, but I mean, we're talking about like by 5 or 6 years later, one guy could do what 20 guys could do
Because the technology
because of the
had just
technology. Yeah.
okay.
Just
Yeah.
if you could afford it. And I mean, I was going to say, from my desk, I had, I guess, 4 traders and myself, and just from my trading platform was probably between 30 and $40,000 a month. But my trading desk made, I don't know, 1 million a month, maybe. So, it's all relative, right?
So is it still anyone's game in that sense? Like a really bright
Yeah,
spark? In
yeah.
that
If you
sense, it's
can,
still
I mean, it's all about what you can afford, though, right? And so
right.
that's the thing that's interesting. When I left Wall Street, I started writing as a subject matter expert on capital market structure, right? And the
Yes.
reason I wasn't an employee, I was a consulting analyst. Pardon me. We got the pollen or what ragweed, whatever the latest
We've
thing
got
is.
snow.
Oh,
Completely different.
I would do
Yeah,
snow.
today.
That would be cool.
I would do ragwork. We'll swap.
So,
Would.
so the reason these guys hired me was because I just what I've said. I had used all these different trading systems, and I knew most of the players at each like company and all the different. And it's not just one thing. So you have trading systems, then you got to know like the people like that provide the data. Like so when you're looking at the tape, like when you're on CNBC, you have to
Yeah.
pay for all that stuff when you're running a
Right.
trading desk.
Right.
It is not insignificant. Um, so um, one of the things I used to write about, and it's interesting because I think the same thing's happening right now, um, was the democratization of finance, right? So think about
Okay.
when your parents, were, I don't know, they're investing, they would have to
Yeah.
get in their car and go see a guy, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Or if they were going to do their taxes, they got to, go see the accountant and take all your
Right.
shit and go. Well, now you just do all that on your phone.
Right. So a
Okay, so
kid
think
in
about
their
in
basement.
finance, it used to be that, you had Merrill Lynch and maybe 5 or 6 companies that owned that whole market. And then it was really a result of the financial crash that all these people got fired, like 30,000 people, including me.
This is 2008. Is this the Q8?
Yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah.
in the aftermath, so you had all these people, and a lot of them were very, very smart people. See, people, these big companies used to hire um, engineers and physicists and all these, to create all these algorithms and these various financial products that ended up blowing the world up, right?
To try and
So
understand the market better and
yeah,
better
yeah, it was all about the
okay.
edge. And so they would so all these people are suddenly out of work, and a lot of them just said, screw it, I'm not going back to Wall Street. I'm just gonna start up a thing and just, you know,
In my
that
front
is
room.
well, that's how you end up with um what we used to call robo advisors, like if you've ever heard of like um Betterment is one where you can plan out your retirement on an app now, right?
Right.
Or Chime, or I'm not going to put PayPal in there. That's a whole different story, and
No,
that's
and we
Peter
will get on
Thiel.
to Peter Thiel in a minute.
That's a
We
different
will.
thing. But
Yeah. I have
those
just left PayPal.
yeah, but those apps, I mean, that all kind of came out of the financial crisis, and when all these brainiacs just got dispersed, and then what happened was um fintech, basically. That's
What's
see
fintech?
fintech. Well, financial technology. It's what do you
Oh,
call it?
okay.
A
Oh, okay.
portmanteau.
It's a
Is that?
portmanteau. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so it used to mean like trading systems, financial technology, but then it kind of became to mean these startup, apps that we use now, and we don't even think about it, right?
That are kind of off book, as in that they're
Yeah,
not.
it's a well, we used to call it. So I used to write. That was my focus. As I mean, I did like some, more market structure kind of stuff. Like one time, I got hired to because these guys they'd get a client, and then if it fit my wheelhouse, they'd hire me to write the report. So like one time, the NASDAQ or the NYSE did a joint venture with some group that was trying to um, create a stock market in Brazil, because Brazil only, unless it's changed, they only have one stock market, and so there's no like Nasdaq and NYSE and and so on. And so,
Hang on,
but
what's
other,
wrong with only having one? What's wrong with having only one stock market?
it's kind of like having Walmart.
Oh, I see. No
You only got
competition.
one
Okay,
place to go, right? And so
okay, got
there's,
it. No competition.
you know, implicit, there's, you know, the idea of competition
Okay,
even
got it.
between NASDAQ. I mean, and you know what? Just with the consolidation that we've had here, because you might not remember this, but there was a time when there were all these different trading venues like Archipelago and Island and all these different ones. And they've gone now, and we're really just back to, you know, back to two. Um, Actually, I wrote something just along those lines the other day. Not an article, but I just noticed that the Intercontinental Exchange, which used to be kind of also ran, to me anyway, and then they bought the New York Stock Exchange, right?
Yeah.
And now, so it's weird too because their acronym, by the way, is ICE, which is kind of weird.
Okay, it's kind of
um,
weird.
but they own the NYSE, but they're also a publicly traded company, and so their stock trades on the NYSE, which is to me
Sounds
odd,
a little bit off,
right?
doesn't it?
The other day, this is interesting. The other day, there is a uh, they call them prediction markets. It's called Poly Market, and you know, it's one of those things where you can just go on the website, and it's not supposed to trade in the U.S. because you can predict who's going to run for president, and you can put money on it, just like, you know, like a bookie
Like
thing,
a bookie,
right?
right? Like a
Yeah.
bookie on the corner. Yeah.
Well, I think it was last week. ICE, the Intercontinental Exchange,
Yeah,
not the
not its
other guy.
cousin. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
well, they announced that they're going to invest $2 billion in Poly Market and bring prediction market stuff to the stock market. I'm sure nothing will go wrong.
Well, nothing wrong with that.
What could go wrong with that,
What could
right?
possibly go wrong with that? But they are, this is going to sound like a super stupid question, but they're allowed to do that. There's no regulation that
Not
says
that,
that
no,
cannot happen.
no. Now, Poly Market is up until maybe a few months ago, and I'd have to go check, but I'm pretty sure, well, I know, like during our last election, everything that happens with them is outside of the US. However,
Territory wise, it's outside.
yeah,
So they might be
yeah,
in
they're
the,
not allowed to operate in the US until they bought a company in the US a few months ago. I'm 99% sure of this. So you could tell that's their way of trying to get around the whatever's keeping them out of the US. That was their way to sort of weasel their way into you know, being
but
able to operate here.
if you wanted to invest, like take a
Oh,
bet
there's
on
nothing
who
that
was going
keeps
to,
me from doing it.
would you use pounds or euros? You just couldn't
Wherever
trade
you
in
are,
dollars. Wherever
wherever
you
you,
are. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so the interesting thing about that story, and it just kind of goes back to where we started with, um, oh, you know, how everything is just, there's always something sort of sketchy. So the guy who, and I cannot think of his, Sprecher, I think is his last name. I forget his first name, but um, so this is the guy that's the chairman and the founder of the Intercontinental Exchange, and his wife is Loeffler, who used to be a U.S. She used to be a U.S. senator in Georgia. She's now the head of the Small Business Association in the Trump.
That's a nice coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
well, it's
wild.
kind of weird. I mean, and you know, I'm no
Hey.
shade, but
Yeah.
she was an employee of the International or the Intercontinental Exchange. I think um and 2 years later she ends up marrying this guy, and the next thing you know, she has like a crypto company or something that gets bought by the Intercontinental Exchange or something like that, and then the next thing you know, she's owner of a WNBA team. Next thing you know, she gets appointed as a senator and yada yada yada. She's she's running the SBA now, right? Nice work
Right.
if you can get it.
Right. But that's, I think, where I go back to this idea that on the one hand, it's been democratized in terms of the tech and
Hmm.
the fact that if you're bright and good, you can get into it and you can probably figure it out, versus the idea that who you know and what you've got. And I was watching you were talking about Mag 7 and this circular firing squad that's going on at the top.
Hmm.
And that's not democratic in the slightest, because actually, from what I understand, what you were saying, they are currently holding up. What we're seeing is not real, right? And they are holding this thing up by just,
Well, it's
well, no, I
I
know
I didn't
exactly the
say it
phrase you were
quite
going to
as
use,
eloquently as you
but I
did.
know the phrase you were going to use when you and you stopped yourself and you said circular firing
Yeah,
squad instead of the phrase.
it's well, yeah, yeah, let's call it that. I mean,
Let's call
what
it that,
you've got,
because
and
that's not fair at all, is
it's
it? And
all
that's
revolving around Chat GPT or Open AI for sure. And I'll post something. I actually had just hadn't gotten around to it this morning. But it's almost like there's they're called it's almost like a curse that everybody that goes into a big deal with open AI, you look down the road a few weeks later and their stock just falls completely out of bed, right? And I think the latest victim is Oracle. I actually saw it in the Financial Times. I think it's this morning, maybe yesterday.
okay.
But
Okay.
I'll post it later. It's just kind of
Okay. Yeah, please
interesting.
do.
But
Okay.
there's
Explain
go
that
on.
to me. What's happening? Can you
I
explain that?
Okay, so um I think if you look at companies, so they plan ahead, right? And for next year, they are going to allocate in their budget X percentage of their dollars for what we call CapEx,
Okay.
capital expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
And usually that you're talking about infrastructure and that kind of thing. Um, so I'm going to use Amazon as an example. A few weeks ago, they announced that they started off saying they were going to lay off, I think it was 16,000 people.
I read
And
this. Yeah.
somebody told me yesterday now it's closer to 30,000 people.
Right.
Um, what was interesting to me was that it wasn't the folks in the call centers or down at the bottom of the food chain. The people, the place where they're laying off is the white collar jobs. And so I don't know if this is true, but this is a theory that I've run across. It seems to make sense. What you've got now with with the Mag 7, all these guys are racing each other. Um, and the way I think about it, it's almost like, is it going to be Betamax or is it going to be VHS? Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and everybody wants to be the standard for, I don't know, AI. Let's just say
Yeah. Okay.
they're spending enormous amounts of money because to accomplish that takes a whole lot of computing power. And that's why you're seeing all these data centers that are just a friend of mine. I was watching a particular um, development of a data center they were trying to get a data center in this little rural town where he lives. And it was being the whole thing was being pushed by a developer. They didn't want to say who the data center was for. So what happens, and this apparently happens all the time, where this group comes in and they buy up a bunch of farmland, and but then folks go, wait a minute, what are you doing? And they don't really want to say. So anyway, without going too far afield, what's happening, what appears to be happening with Amazon, is that they didn't lay those people off, like downsizing or something like that. They laid them
Mm.
off because they need the money. They need to redirect the
Wow.
money that they would have paid. And think about it. You're going to free up a whole lot more money with the white collar guys than if you fire
Sure.
the folks that work in your distribution center. So that's what it appears. And of course, it's Oracle, NVIDIA. Here's a fun fact.
Yeah,
So
let's talk about Nvidia.
Nvidia has a $5 trillion
I
market.
know. I read that number and I just thought we've gone into the land
Well,
of
just to
doom.
put it in
Like,
comparison, think of it if it was the GDP
even
of a
mean that
country.
number now.
If it was the GDP of a country, there's only two countries bigger, the US and China. So Nvidia, you know, in terms of the value of that company, that at least that's what the market says. The value of that company is bigger than the GDP of France.
I mean, that's when I just, because that's not a
Well,
value that's ever going to be realized because that money doesn't exist. So to put that value on it is, let's talk about bubbles because that's what I'm hearing all the time,
well, a
right?
lot of
And
people, you just look at these things, and I guess, fortunately, seen a few bubbles pop. And
yeah,
I mean, I got to New York in 2000, late 2000. So just in time for the internet bubble. And then, a few months later, 9/11, and then, just on and on. I actually was in the first bubble that I ever saw was Black Monday in 1987, and it just seems like kind of I don't even know if it would
like,
make the news now.
no, I know. It
It
seems
would
just
be
like
like,
child's play.
some little thing
Yeah.
happened. I mean, but the stock market was something like 1300 or something. I say the stock market, the New York Stock Exchange. So it
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
a really
That's
different time.
extraordinary. So Peter Thiel has dumped all his stock.
Mm.
Is he
Well,
is
he's
he
dumped all
pausing
his
it?
stock in
Is it Nvidia?
Nvidia.
In Nvidia.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Yeah. Is he bringing it on or is he seeing it coming?
I mean, um, I think what these guys are doing is kind of repositioning themselves because, if we're talking about a bubble, it's like that analogy of the guy standing on top of the building versus the guy that's on the street
Yeah,
level.
if
That
I
we're the
no,
street level guy.
because you're in the
So,
business.
well, maybe I'm on the 10th floor. I don't think I'm on the top floor, but I mean, I know what to look for because I've seen
Right.
it before. And it just looks to me like, I mean, this guy just freed up 100 million in cash and didn't put it
Yeah.
in anything else.
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
Now that we can see. So
All
you have
right.
to keep in mind, this is what we saw was or what, that whole scenario that I described. And for folks who don't know, so Peter Thiel has what's called he has a lot of different things. Uh, you know, we won't even get into what he's doing
He's
with
the
the
Dark Lord. Let's
yeah,
name him.
he's really a fright, but
He's right.
but he has this Teal macro fund, which it's a hedge fund, but 40% of that portfolio was in Nvidia, and now it's
Wow.
not. So they have
Wow.
to report every quarter their holdings. It's called a 13F, and guys like me I would look at that on Bloomberg, and you could kind of get a feel of as a guy accumulating stock, or if I was
Yeah.
selling, a particular thing, you want to know who the holders are. So you look at the
Right.
13F, even though it's last quarter, it's the best, it's going to be
It's
your best
kind of
guess.
steer. Yeah.
So, so, yeah, when his 13F came out, suddenly there's no Nvidia, right? And you're just going, huh? Okay, so why would he do that? I mean, it's a signal that
Yeah.
he's got a view that it's probably not a good idea to own Nvidia anymore, and that he also reduced his holding in Tesla.
Okay, but not
He
by
still owns some, but not as much.
yeah.
He dramatically reduced his position in Tesla. So now all that portfolio owns is Apple, Microsoft, and some Tesla. Hmm. Now, I didn't mention this, but he is also the money behind Peter Thiel is the money
Mhm.
behind Polymarket, the prediction market.
Oh,
See how
okay.
it
Yeah.
works?
See.
Yeah, he's the money. So he has another venture capital fund called Founders Fund. I wrote about this a long time ago, and
Okay.
he is the main investor, or that venture capital fund is the main investor in Polymarket, or it was, unless, well, it was until the international or intercontinental exchange now is going to put $2 billion in. Well, I'm sure Peter Thiel isn't mad about
Feel-
that at all. Because I
Right. Or
mean,
unless he's in some way connected to Continental as well.
The ICE, I don't know that he is. I mean, he
Okay.
could be, but I'm not aware of it. But it doesn't hurt the risk he's taking with Polymarket when you have a big investor like that come in, and they're doing a joint venture, so they're going into business together, the Intercontinental and Polymarket, right? So they're going to develop some sort of an infrastructure, I guess, that connects Polymarket's data to, so if I'm investing in, using, it's probably going to be a product of some sort that the ICE would sell to give
Give
people
me an
additional.
example.
Um, well, think of Bloomberg, right? I mean, that's what Bloomberg does. Bloomberg costs, I mean, if you're in finance, and I mean, you cannot exist without having a Bloomberg system. You just can't.
Okay.
Pardon me. I mean, Reuters has a similar technology, and there's some other people, but the way Bloomberg works is, there's sort of a base system that you get with news and all of this, but I don't know if I want to see the FT, that's a subscription I got to pay, and it goes through Bloomberg. If I want a certain kind of data, or stochastics or just charts, so it's all a la carte. So
Okay.
I don't know what they're going to do, but that's kind of how I would imagine it would be, some sort of a product that's a la carte that you could just pay extra, and maybe you get it through Bloomberg, or maybe you get it, however, but that's probably how they would do it, I guess. But they didn't really say, they just, how these press releases are. It's real vague and lofty, but,
E-
that's sort of how I
Long words and
figure
no
it.
content. Yeah. And in terms of, because I'm invested in a unit trust here in the UK, and
Okay.
one of the questions, well, for a while, there was a whole bunch of us. And then I split away because some of us really wanted to be very kind of ESG and strict on that. And we had a very clear sin bin, and the old fashioned sin bin, like guns, cigarettes,
Oh
alcohol,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
The old fashioned ones.
Yeah.
And the big question that we are asking now, and this is what makes me think of Peter Thiel, like, is he just interested in making money, or is he directing
No, I
democracy or
think,
the
I
fall
mean,
of? Because can we include big tech like Mag 7? Should we now be including them in the sin bin in terms of ESG?
I don't know how you could. Well, so you mean including
I
them
don't know
if,
how you could, but
or
ethically should we? I don't know how you'd actually
I,
do
I
it
don't
at
I
all.
don't know how you could. And I mean,
Okay.
because it's what would you invest in?
Yeah, right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
if you
Okay.
wanted to go, so you mean like, oh, some of the pension funds I used to deal with had portfolios that were X tobacco, X, X
These are very
guns, or,
simple. We can split,
whatever.
right? We can split.
Yeah, we'll invest, but we're not going to invest in a company that, um, that's in the gun business or whatever.
Right. Easy.
But you see, and the reason I say that, okay, so um, just this morning, I noticed this last night or at some point yesterday. So you've got Mohammed bin Salman,
Yeah,
MBS.
right. And the cozy up.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's it's sitting in the White House, and at the same time, of all places, Variety drops
Mm.
the story that Paramount Skydance, which that's just, don't get me started on that merger. But, you know, they're trying now to buy Warner Brothers Discovery.
Right.
And they floated 50 billion, and the folks at Warner Brothers just said, no, come back when you got some money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now the rumor that Variety drops is that um, Paramount Skydance has put together this consortium of Gulf state. So the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or Qatar, as you prefer, um, they have their sovereign wealth funds. And unlike the one that Trump wants to create out of thin air, their funds actually have money in them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's real
You can't
cash.
really, at least my understanding of sovereign wealth funds is you actually have to have wealth. We have deficits. We don't have any. So, it's just kind of necessary just because it's a wealth fund, right?
Right.
So, I used to do business with the sovereign wealth fund of Abu Dhabi. Um, and these, they just have, at the time, nobody really understood how much money they actually had. We knew it was in the trillions, but so, if you need somebody to write a check, that's a good place to go.
Go to those
Um,
guys.
so from what Variety reported, it was Qatar, um, Saudi Arabia, and I forget another couple of countries were in there also. But it just felt like all the earmarks of a coordinated MBS's at the White House, and the story drops. Paramount says, "Oh no, that's not true," but it's out there now, right?
Yeah.
And it just seemed like a signal. I don't know to who, maybe to Warner Brothers that hey, we got money, let's do business. I don't know. We'll see.
And
But
power.
but I just look at that, and to me, if I'm thinking of Paramount Skydance, I'm also thinking of Oracle because David Ellison is the CEO, but his daddy is Larry Ellison. And Larry Ellison is the CEO of Oracle, big Trump supporter. I mean, the whole family is. And the way that merger is structured, yeah, David's the CEO, but all the voting stock is controlled by a group that's really the Ellison family, which is really Larry Ellison. So Larry Ellison's running that company indirectly. Will you talk about rules back at where we
Yeah.
started? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. And setting aside the fact that Oracle looks like they're going to do like a massive cloud deal with Paramount at some point. I guess this potential merger has kind of put that on the side, but it just looks to me like they're lining up. And so I'm just thinking about the whole thing. Peter Thiel, what
Yeah.
he just did with Nvidia. And it just
Yeah.
looks to me like there's an intersection of AI, tech, and media, and there's something going on and it's all consolidating. And we're just sort of what's it? George Carlin, and I love this is a quote I always think about. There's this big club and you ain't in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where, all I'm doing is just sitting here watching the stuff just fly by. And, we're not gonna, I don't think any of this is good for us because, well, when one company owns all the streaming services, how's that, how's that good for competition? How's that good? How's that good for what we pay for this stuff?
Yeah. So that's what I'm kind of driving at because I'm okay with the idea that a bunch of crazy uber rich people are just interested in making money because that will always be so. They will always be there. And if they want to play around at the top, just making money, that's fine. But when it becomes people who are riding Project 25 and are hell bent on destroying democracy, so that becomes one of their value systems, not just I want to be the richest person on earth, but I want to
Mhm.
destroy democracy. And that's to me the intersection.
Well, they
And
have
that's
a
why.
different view on. They just. I mean, I don't. I think guys like Peter Thiel have a fundamental problem with the idea of democracy. I don't think.
Abs-
I don't think it's
Yeah.
like oh, we just want to overthrow them. They don't like the idea of it. They wouldn't,
No.
they have this whole dark, I forget what where they think corporations should be running this. And
Yeah.
what's interesting how people, I'm always fascinated by writers like, guys like Philip K. Dick and these people that wrote about stuff, or um, Marion Atwood, I guess the like,
Yeah.
it's like, was
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
in like a fucking time machine or what? How did she,
Yeah. Yeah.
how did
If
she come
she
up with it?
saw.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
And
she just followed it to its obvious
yeah. So
conclusion.
when I was in college, in the olden days, um, my freshman English professor was a guy, Faulkner was his name, and we all had to, he wrote a book, literally wrote the book on English at the University of Arkansas, and we all had to use his book, for that
Right.
class. But
Sounds annoying.
he also had written a story. Do you remember the movie Rollerball?
No.
It's like in the early 70s. I think James Caan was the
Okay.
and it was about, if you think of, like roller skating, but they had sort of
Yeah.
combined it with football kind of, and it was really violent. And all the teams were sponsored by corporations. And the whole idea was like that corporations were really running. It seemed really far-fetched back in the 70s, but it's kind of where we're at right now, where yeah, Trump's the president, but is he really? I mean, Peter Thiel literally put the vice president in place.
Yeah. That's what we're talking
I
about.
mean, Trump is
Yeah.
just kind of, you know, they just give him a phone and let him get pissed off about
He's
stuff
a
and write
moron
stuff.
puppet.
And
Right.
yeah, he really is. And I'm not saying that he, for people that like that kind of thing, he's got like a mass appeal. And you got to give him credit. I mean, he figured out which of the two parties was the weak one, and here we are.
I
Right.
always think if Trump had loving kindness in his heart, he'd be fucking amazing.
Oh
Because
man.
he wouldn't have done. Can you
Oh
imagine?
well.
I know, we can dream.
Oh well. Yeah. Darn.
Yeah,
We were this
darn.
close.
I know.
We were so close. Yeah, if this guy, but remember, I was in a conversation with somebody over, and look, the Democrats never fail to disappoint, right?
I know.
But it's
Yeah.
all we got. And a lot of people say, oh, we need a third party. Well, we just don't. I have not seen evidence that tells me that would be a successful thing to do, to try to recreate, all the progressives go to some third party. Um, the evidence to me isn't there that we would do anything. We'd have a positive, the outcome that we want. So I look at it, old reform capitalist. I look at it like this: which is the easier thing to do? Start a business or buy a business that's already existing. And then what happens when you merge, you fire a bunch of people. And, I'm just so
Yeah.
right now, the the Democratic Party is a company that needs to be taken over and gutted, and all the new and some new people put in to run it. Right. That's kind of how I think about it. And, not to be, well, whatever. Chuck Schumer needs to go. Nancy Pelosi, thanks, but you should have gone five years ago. All these, and it's not an age thing as much as it is, for me anyway, a mindset kind of thing
Does
that
that go hand in
they're
hand with age?
they're think
Though?
it has to, I think, necessarily to some extent. Um,
Mm.
I think what keeps me thinking different is that my 20-year-old or 21-year-old daughter lives with me now. And I've got a son that's in college still. So, I do have kind of that connection where I say
Mm.
something stupid and get a look and I go, okay, let me change that up. you know,
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And so
Yeah. Yeah.
so I just maybe have a different way of looking at it because I'm around people that are, I'm not sitting up around a whole bunch of 70-ish people all the time. Most of the people that I interact with are a lot younger than me. And I go out of my way to sort of keep up, right?
Yeah.
And I think too, just by virtue of the business where I came from, you have to constantly stay on top of what the new thing is, or you just get left. I mean, when I went
And
to
what
New
are they
York,
saying
well, um,
for your kids? What are
first
they
of
saying?
all, think about these are people who wouldn't know how to find ABC or CBS on our television if I paid them. They just wouldn't know where it was, right?
Right.
They don't
Yeah.
why they don't they are only looking at YouTube. That's
Yeah.
where
Yeah. Yeah.
they're looking at
That's what.
YouTube. Kind of TikTok is kind of yeah, I did that 2 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
but really their idea of watching television is watching YouTube and picking whatever it is that's interesting to them. I find myself, I unplugged many years ago. I mean,
Mm,
like probably 10 years ago from just mainstream cable news stuff.
hmm.
Um, for a minute, I had YouTube television, which I found to be the best of those kind of services. But now, after the election, I just turned my TV off, and when I turned it back on, I didn't want any cable news, and I was just sort of, I've got a Fire Stick. I'm sorry, but this is what we're talking about. You can't
Yeah.
get away from these guys. I don't care for Jeff Bezos, but how do I
Yeah.
watch TV and not use
Yeah.
one of these? It's either Bill Gates or him or some other
Yeah. Yeah.
big, because we've allowed them to take over everything that we. These are things that probably in a perfect world should be utilities,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Are
I
you
mean,
using? Are you
Verizon.
using Proton? Are you on Proton?
Yeah, I'm on Proton, but I don't use it. I use it for some stuff. I've got three different email addresses. It's just and it depends on what the thing is. Like if it's
Yeah.
something that is just it doesn't it's not consequential, then I just use my Gmail. But if it's
Right.
business, I have like, something through Microsoft.
Yeah. But even if it's an impossible ask to disentangle ourselves from these massive conglomerates, the Mag Seven, does that mean we shouldn't try? Because in my world, there's a million things like that they're massive and they feel overwhelming, but that doesn't cut the conversation off. For me, it's like,
You know
okay,
what we need?
individually.
What we actually need is the onus shouldn't be on us to handle this. What we really kind of need is like a Teddy Roosevelt, like a trust
Yeah. Okay.
buster kind of. and
Okay.
and the closest thing that we had to that, in my view, at least in recent years, was Lena Khan, the
Okay.
the woman who ran the FTC, and now she's the co-chair of Mamdani's transition team in New York, which is interesting. I don't know what the plan is, or if she's going to be permanent in some way, but that's got to be scaring the shit out of those folks that were throwing money at trying to keep him from winning, which is crazy. Think about this. I heard a comedian, this is not an original thought, but guys like Bloomberg and all these people that were spending all this money to defeat him probably spent more money than he was going to tax them. I mean, think about that. It's so dumb, but
Wow. That's
so it's
so
about
dumb.
more than the tax thing. It's a power thing, and there's a paradigm shift that happened in New York, and they couldn't stop it. It's almost like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
we call in a black swan event almost.
Yeah.
The idea that a Muslim democratic socialist could win
I know
in the
it.
financial capital of the world, I would never have taken that bet ever.
Right. Not on Polly, what's it or anyone.
No, the
Yeah.
odds
Yeah.
were, I mean, he had a 1% chance at one point.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
It's wild.
yeah. Well, no, I shouldn't say it that way. He had 1% of the vote according to the polls, and he ended up getting over 50%. So it wasn't like, oh, like the first time Bill Clinton won, there was like a three-way race and he ended up winning, but he only got like in the 40s. but because of Ross Perot, I think Ross Perot, he kind of split the Republican vote or something. But that's not what this guy won outright,
Oh,
and which
right.
I was glad to see because that tells you it's not a fluke.
Yeah. And
And
as far as I understand, he's a regulator. He's not afraid of regulation. And this is one of the problems we have in the UK, that there's like a knee-jerk reaction against regulation when it's regulation that makes us put on our seatbelts, and it's regulation which makes us do a whole load of things, but reputationally regulation is just. So is it possible to have a Teddy Roosevelt again, with not only with the climate but with the structure now and the kind of very in bed with system that has set itself up?
I think the biggest problem that um, the political left in America has is that, by and large, and I'm gonna take progressives out of it
Okay.
because, and you'll understand, because Mamdani just gave us the blueprint of
Yeah,
how to
right.
you know, the
Yeah.
blueprint isn't trying to figure out how to get the people who would have voted for Cuomo or
No,
Sliwa to
it's
vote for
not to be
you.
more like them.
It's to get the person who thinks everybody's the same, so why even bother? That's the guy you want to get, or person. And if you look back, as disastrous as all this turned out, I think Kamala Harris only lost by 1.5% or
Yeah.
something. So it wasn't like she just got blown out,
No,
right?
no,
And
no.
if not for, again, to use the term, a black swan event, which l- I'm not gonna speculate on how it is that Trump won every single swing state by less than 1%, but there's that.
Okay.
But it
Right.
happened,
Right.
and here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
So it's not as though, and she did that basically from, like, a
Within
standing
3 months.
start. Yeah,
Right.
she didn't really run. She just
No.
had to just
She was
jump
warming
in
up.
and go, right?
Yeah.
So that's why when people say she shouldn't run again, I'm sort of like, why? Give the lady, because look, there's going to be a
She's got the
primary,
gumption.
and she can make her case or not, but at least
Mm.
she'll have time to make it. And I don't know, I'm not a particular fan of Gavin Newsom. And,
Okay. Well,
I'm not saying, look, he is very good at trolling Trump, and we need somebody to do that. But I'm sort of like, yeah, but this guy sat down with Charlie Kirk. Why'd he do that? So
okay.
I don't like people that just sort of morph to the situation.
Okay. I
And
do know we have
so
this in the UK.
yeah, I'm a whole lot more of an AOC fan. And I'm not saying she
Yeah.
should or is gonna run for president,
I would love it if
but
she ran. I mean, I'm British, but I watch
you
more
know
American politics.
what I suspect she's gonna do, if Chuck Schumer's smart, he'll retire and save himself the embarrassment. If
Right.
she could run against him, and damn, I don't know how she
Yeah.
loses. I really don't,
Oh,
because all the people that voted for Mamdani are gonna get up off the couch again, and they'll vote for
you're
her,
right.
and
Yeah.
then some.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm no political pundit.
Would
That's
be
just me. I'm just
well.
a guy that watches a lot of TV, but
Yeah, I don't believe you. But
but
that's exactly,
I mean, think about it though. I'm pretty much of a unicorn in the sense that I worked on Wall Street. I
right.
mean, like in the belly of capitalism, and I'm progressive. I mean,
Yeah.
probably a lot more so than most people. And I think I always have been a Democrat, right?
Mm.
Back to Jimmy Carter. But working on Wall Street, you see how we used to laugh about this: capitalism on the way up, socialism on the way down. I mean, so like when the financial crisis happened,
Yeah.
we had no doubt that these guys were going to get saved. There wasn't even a thought that the
Yeah. Yeah.
government wasn't going to bail out all of these bank
Bailout.
guys, and that
Mm.
nobody was going to go to freaking jail,
It's
just
makes
because I've
still
seen
makes
it
me
over
sick.
and over again.
Yeah, and they'll
Right.
do it again. They'll
And
do it
so
again.
when people talk to me about, well, picking winners and losers, I'm sort of like, get out of my face, dude. I see it.
Yeah.
We do it all the time. I had a guy
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
me the other day, well, it was during the election. I had to actually like just this is one of the Trump supporter types that I literally had to just say, you know what, we're done. But his he has this, and I hear it all the time. This whole thing about EVs, the government is forcing EVs, and I'm like, what do you mean by that? Well, the government is, um, supporting the industry, and I'm like, have you seen farmers lately, or the
I know.
oil industry? Or we do
Yeah.
this all the time. We subsidize everything.
Yeah.
So I just think people a lot of times get sold, but they don't think it through. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a weird guy, uh, the
I
reformed
think you're
capitalist.
a brilliant guy. We're really nearly at time. It's been such a brilliant hour, Marlon. But the last
Mm,
question I just want to ask: how's the memoir? Are you writing it?
I told I told my wife, I will say this.
Yeah.
I have gotten to the point that I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm
Hey,
I'm
that's
I'm to
great.
where now what I'm doing is I haven't finished it, but I've gotten to like that arc that's, gonna and I told my wife yesterday, I think it was. I said, "Man, I wish if my newsletter could get to a certain sort of critical mass in terms of paid subscribers. I'm not there
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
close. But I think in my head, I think it's 20,000 subscribers and 1,000 paid subscribers, something like that. Then
Okay.
because we're all out here writing. I love what I'm doing, but I'm also doing it just to sustain so that I can keep doing it. And I don't have
Right.
to go work at Walmart or some
Yeah.
something,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I told her yesterday if I could go to like Western North Carolina, the mountains, and just get
Yeah.
in a cabin for like a
Yeah.
week, I'd freaking finish it. Where
Yeah.
all I
Okay.
need is internet, no TV, no
Yeah.
news, maybe
And your
okay,
brain.
maybe a little bit of news,
Okay.
but
Only in the
because I don't
evenings.
want the government to, like have another coup attempt and
Yeah.
I
You
don't
miss
know
it.
about it. Look up and all these dudes with guns are around my cabin. So,
Okay, but so that's pretty
but
good.
I'm
That's a week
close.
away.
I
If you
mean,
have
I'm
that week,
close.
okay, you're
Yes,
close.
I could do it
That's exciting.
probably in a week of just really
Wow.
grinding it out. And I know sort of how it ends. I'll tell you,
Okay.
this is funny. Well,
Yeah.
so it actually ends on September 10th, 2001.
Okay.
And then the epilogue is like me sort of in the present looking back. And
Okay.
if I can do that, then it leaves it open for another book that because really what I'm writing is a story about how I got in finance in Arkansas, like, me and three other black guys in the whole state, right? And I say guys because there were no women, for God's sakes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that
Yeah.
was
For
just
boy,
the way it
really.
was. Yeah. And so yeah, so then I do that, and then I start the
Okay.
first black-owned investment firm, and I just kind of go through how did I end up on Wall Street, and
Yeah.
to tell that story, really the sort of stopping place, as it turns out, is the day before 9/11. And so
Yeah.
if
Which
I
is super.
if I could do that, and then if I could get a two-book deal, uh,
Mm-mm.
I put some of this stuff in Chat GPT, and it said, "Ooh, this is a thriller. You
Right.
should do like a um, what do you call it? A treatment for a screenplay because it's a great
Okay.
story." But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, but the way it's coming out on memoir, and that's something I know that you just have to go with how it's landing on the page, don't you? And
yeah,
if it's
yeah.
landing as a memoir, you got to.
I
But the
mean,
following one has got activism, where finance and activist and politics
you know what?
they
You'd be
meet at.
surprised though how much of that is in what I'm writing already because it comes
Okay, because I
along.
hear it in your voice all the
Well, it
time.
just comes along at a time
Yeah,
where I didn't see it that way then, but I was really
yeah,
fortunate to be in a lot of rooms where there just had never been a black person
yeah,
that wasn't like waiting on somebody or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so there's some historical the way that I tell it because just to sort of move the story along, I have to sort of tell it in a way that you understand. We're talking about the 60s. That's why people are saying the N word so much. Or we're talking about,
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah.
I remember when I first, when I first got in that business and one of my uncles pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Marlon, now I know how you are. And when somebody says the N word, you can't hit them because you're going to lose your job and you're going to be out of that business and they're going to be fine. So you just got to just, suck it up and just keep rolling." And when he told me that, I was like, "Oh man, nobody does that, in the workplace. What are you talking about?" And sure enough, it
Wow.
yeah. And it wasn't even directed at me. It was just sort of people. It took a minute for some people to sort of make the adjustment that we can't say the N word anymore because there's that black guy sitting right next to us.
Right.
And we like him, and
Right.
so yeah, it was just a weird time. So to the extent that it's political, yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's certainly a view, and I don't even want to shy away from the fact that I'm not sure I always handled it that well,
Okay.
because you
Yeah.
try to just sort of fit in, right? Or at least
Right.
I did. And
To begin
so,
with, anyway,
I
like
mean,
that's what we all do to begin with.
yeah, I mean, Eleanor, I voted for Ronald Reagan one time. I'm not proud of it, but
Okay, I'm glad you confessed.
so I'm just saying, so I disclose a lot. But yeah, I don't even know why I did it, except that everybody that I was around, that's who they voted for. And I
I'm
just,
going to confess that I voted for Cameron once. Okay, I have now confessed. It's the only time in my life I voted Conservative, and I regret it deeply. Yeah.
well, as long as we atone for our sin, right?
Right.
The first step is, you got to recognize that you made a mistake and then you got to say you're sorry.
Allow, and
That's
then you got
why,
to investigate.
yeah, that's why I'm looking
Yeah.
at Marjorie Taylor Greene with a whole lot of side
Well,
eye
this is
because
a
I'm
whole.
like,
I wish we had time for that because that was just like, what the
well,
fuck? Okay,
when
this is
she starts
interesting.
apologizing to
I
people,
know.
then she might, maybe
But
I'll,
she really, I mean, the little clip I saw, she said, in a sense, I totally fucked up. It's utterly toxic. I'm really sorry. Which is like,
mm, I
those
mean,
words go a long way. I think.
my
I don't
mom
know.
used to say she could forgive, but she'll never forget.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I am with her. I
Well,
mean, okay,
yeah.
okay, good on you.
Good on you, but let's
Let's see
not
how you
like
do.
cover you in glory for saying for admit you're right. There's a difference
I
between
never thought I'd see her on The View. I
yeah.
never thought I'd see that, but whatever.
Yeah, she doesn't get a dance. We'd move on, but glad that she's you know, at least said those words. We've got to go in a minute, but something you said at the end of the last live you did, you said, I wish Substack would publish the chat at the same time as the
Oh my gosh.
transcript.
I
Oh
know
my
because I'm
God.
seeing all this stuff that
I know.
somebody
And I
said that
never get, I'm sorry, everyone listening and watching, but every,
Michelle says that
my
something
favorite
shocked her
Substack.
more than anything in my memoir. I'm not sure what she's talking about though.
Okay, maybe it might be my memoir. I've been republishing. It's always
Maybe she's talking about you.
my memoir.
Wait, I'm not the only person writing a memoir now?
What?
The hell? Oh man. Eleanor, we've got to do this more often. This is so much fun.
This is so much fun. Oh, so good to see you. So great to talk. I just,
I'll keep
yeah, I
you
love hanging out
posted
with
on
you.
the memoir.
Yeah, please do.
I am
That'd be
bound and
great.
determined that I'm going to
I
finish this
cannot
thing.
wait to read it. I
I need
cannot
the
wait to
money.
read it.
And
Okay. Well, look, well,
if
on that score, let's do a shout out, Marlon. Take the floor. Do a shout out. What do you need from your subscribers and payers?
hey,
Let's right.
subscribe to my newsletter. I
Yeah.
will say through the holidays, it's one of those. I'm doing one of those forever discounts, like 20% off, as long
Okay.
as you're a subscriber. Because I've got a lot of plans, and these things don't pay for themselves, unfortunately. But
Nope.
but you know what though? Even if those who can, please do. But if you can't, it's no big deal. All of my stuff is free, and there are a lot of ways you can help. Share, tell your friends. Tell your enemies.
Especially.
Tell everybody you like, but be sure to tell the people you don't
Tell
like.
the ones you don't like. Yeah. So good to see you, man. And I'll see you in the stacks.
All right.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming on. See you later.